up the fuck about what them bitches gotta say. I'm a West nigga till they put me in the grave. I don't give a love fuck about what them niggas gotta say. I'm a West nigga till they put me in the grave. I don't care about what they say. Hey. Fuck with my Akima, fuck with my sisters, then I got a problem, I'm never gon' miss you. I got 100 hanging out the AR, I got a 50 hanging out the pistol. He say it's corner, I'm just being realistic. I be on them corner posted with the realest. If it's the Sabbath, then we going fishing. I'm reeling them in, that's a God-given mission. I'm really on 10, but I'm stamped in the pistol. I get the order, be glad to dismiss you. Hebrew Academy graduate, nigga. Training, go through the baddest conditions. I don't fuck with none but the baddest of bitches. She righteous, submissive, she glad to be with me. Had that thing Putin like Batman, niggas. She know I'm a prophet, she got to be listening. Disrespect, I ain't having that shit. Tell her go make some business from scratch. She bitchin' a different breed of black men. We don't do the back bend. I remember back when I was really trapping, trying to get the racks in, selling dope to black men. But now I'm trying to make it straight. Like don't forget about my face. We standing up straight, can't fold us. Too heavy, the world won't hold us. Go get you some rank, I told you. Line up in these ranks, we soldier. You can take that to the bank, we focus. Ooh, how many times must we remind you? One body, one way, some break off and never take off as a flex. When the law with you ain't no up next, it's just us, nigga, that's that on that. All that weak shit, that ain't no threat. Say you won't beat, bitch, with that ain't no sweat. We with all that. The Lord called a nigga out the world, I responded and called back. Oh Lord, and everything that they stole from us, fuck that shit, we want all that. Them niggas snitching and they act like bitches. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They killing women and they fuck with sisters. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They telling lies, switching up the doctrine. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They ain't riding until they die, so that's why we unaffiliated with them. Come on the command and general, your honor, we unaffiliated with them. Like they tongue and they say they keep that shit 100, we unaffiliated with them. They telling lies, switching up the doctrine. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They ain't gon' ride until they die, so that's why we unaffiliated with them. That's why we unaffiliated with them. I cannot fuck around with fake niggas. We taking ground when we in your city. You better have the women, have the liquor. Keep that bitch on me, please don't butt the system. Don't be a fool and be another victim. Say you a goon, you just another Christian. How you my brother, you ain't in here with me. We in the gutter, deep down in the trenches. We with them niggas locked up in the prison. Black and Hispanic, Native American, Indian, we ain't just talking shit. But we living in it, we be everywhere, can't miss it. And we be fresh as hell, take a picture. And we professional with the scriptures. Play, we gon' script from, yeah, we some killers. These niggas trippin', they mind blown. Swear business, forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think they pause when niggas say that they be looking for niggas to slide. The only slide that I know about is when I assemble the Glock with the slide. For real, I get the order, you know that it's slaughter. See me and my niggas gon' die. The bigger the better for kingdom of heaven. You niggas get wet up by me cause I'm fed up. I rep UPK. My niggas won't let up. Got choppers, got nines, AKs, Berettas. You say you don't like me, you say you won't fight with what me and my nigga like, bitch, or whatever. You say you don't like me, you say you won't fight with what me and my nigga like. My nigga like them niggas snitching and they act like bitches. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They killing women and they fuck with sisters. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They telling lies, switching up the doctrine. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They ain't gon' ride until they die, so that's why we unaffiliated with them. Come on the command and general, your honor, we unaffiliated with them. Like they tongue and they say they keep that shit 100, we unaffiliated with them. They telling lies, switching up the doctrine. That's why we unaffiliated with them. They ain't gon' ride until they die, so that's why we unaffiliated with them. Yeah. See, they always ask us like, why y'all fuck with such and such? Why y'all won't come together with such and such? I be like, we unaffiliated with them. Understand me, like, niggas be out here on some weirdo shit. And to be honest, that's why we unaffiliated with them. Hey, that's why we unaffiliated with them, yeah. Backstage. I ain't on the table.
I ain't finna tell y'all how Rock got away with this shit.
If I'm more right, that's good business. She look good, but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And then she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it. Oh, no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. that bitch back. And she done fed y'all. Look how you living out. You look scary out. Can't fuck that bitch right. Cause she be getting nailed out. You won't forgive her, ain't it? You wanna love her, don't you? Just know that love ain't for you. It's for the world, homie. I got some real homies. We don't pretend, homie. ISUPK, 1 West, we kickin' field goals. Let that bitch lead, ho. She got them D's, though. With a little stinking ass pussy, she be going beast mode. She HIV, ho. You a dirty ass skeet, ho. Gon' get that shit up out your chest, bitch. Say what you gonna do now, what you gonna say now, what you gonna do to me? It is UPK, I'm shot too deep, it's better Google me. I put these girls all in my training camp like I relieve. I say what I do and I do what I say, bitch, what the fuck you mean? If for more, right, that's good business. She look good but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And if she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it, oh no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. Bitch, nah, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. No, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. You civilian out. Nah, failure out. I ain't gon' work it out. Cause I ain't regular out. I get paper, bro. Got my standards up. You a munchkin out. Catching these out. Check my favorite out. I'm a player out. These niggas top block. Took your lead out. You shouldn't be worried about these broke ass bitches. And don't compare yourself to simp ass niggas. Had to shine a light on these desperate ass women. Cause they be tripping hard, acting like they different. But a bit be basic, bit be horn and bit be naked. Drinking, faking, stankin', the shame is dirty. My bit be vaping. I don't get too fucks about you. I wouldn't have put no baby in you. Bit be saying they got that paper, look, that neck be itch. Done caught the penalty and my energy got me feeling me. Ice hitting on them, these diamond teeth that's into me. And I'm getting right and I'm stacking up and I'm getting to it. And these niggas hate but they can't touch cause I'm bulletproof. If for more, right, that's good business. She look good but hang with dumb bitches. Tell her I'm way too fly for one sister. And if she leave a priest, I won't miss her. Won't put a ring around it, oh no. Bitches for the street like basketball goals. I always knew she'd let that lane hit her. Won't get a cent from me, I ain't simple. Bitch, nah, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. No, I ain't gon' work it out. I ain't regular out. You civilian out. Nah, failure out. I ain't gon' work it out. Cause I ain't regular out.
Shalom, Israel. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua Barakatham to the brothers watching. Yahweh Shemalatham Bashim Yahushua to the sisters watching. Since ISUPK started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Hunter. And since 1969, man, we've been pushing the truth about this Bible. And that truth being that so-called Black, Hispanic, and North American Indians are the chosen people of God, and our oppressor is the devil that the Bible speaks of. Now you tuned in, man. The priest and officer of 1,000, Howard Moore, ISUPK, Kentucky. And this is our Monday night history class. But before we get into it, I want to make sure I invite every so-called Black, Hispanic, and North American Indian tuned in our weekly content. All right, Monday night you got the history class. Tuesday night brotherhood class, talk by officer of 1,000. I'm a Wonga boy. Wednesday night you got the podcast, man. The baddest podcast in Kentucky. Cry Out, Spirit Not podcast, hosted by Officers of 1,000. I'm Awanga Bar and ISUPK. And coming here to biblical breakdowns, the biblical solutions to all the viral videos going across the internet. Come and get your entire timeline broken down. All right. Cry Out, Spirit Not podcast, hosted by Officers of 1,000. I'm Awanga Bar and ISUPK. That's Wednesday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And Saturday morning, you got the Sabbath service. Now, topic of tonight's class, man. What we finna get into tonight, we finna talk about Indian wars, enslavement, and reclassification. All right, Indian wars, enslavement, and reclassification. All right, and we have to understand that this process went a little bit different in different places. You know, I've been hearing about people trying to bring the whole Walter Plecker argument into it. All right. But the issue is that the process of wars, enslavement, and reclassification that took place in Virginia is going to be a different process than what took place in, let's say, what became the state of Mississippi. All right. What happened to indigenous people in Virginia is a slightly different story than what took place in Florida, or what took place in Louisiana, or what took place in Mississippi. All right. So we finna get a few specifics tonight. All right. ISUPK, Kentucky, Monday night history class. All right. Indian wars, enslavement, and reclassification. Now, we finna focus on this area right here. We finna focus on the South. We finna focus on the indigenous people in the American South. All right. At one point, this whole area was called Florida. All right. From modern day, present day Georgia, all right, all the way into East Texas. All right. A similar area where we see the Black Belt region today. All right, dealing with the soil, also dealing with the reverse Great Migration, Black folks moving back down south. All right, we finna focus on this area of the country right here. All right, Queen Anne War. All right, Queen Anne War, 1702 to 1713. South Carolina-based forces primarily consisting of Creek allies and English colonists led by ex-governor James Moore launched devastating raids into Spanish Florida, targeting the Appalachian people. All right, so this was Queen Anne's War. Now, Queen Anne, to put this in perspective, she was the niece of Charles II, and of course, Charles II is the grandson of King James. All right, so Queen Anne War. Queen Anne was the niece of Charles II. All right. Charles II is the grandson of King James. All right. Charleston, South Carolina is named after him. You should be able to put two and two together on this one. All right. So when you're dealing with colonists trying to come into Florida at this time, all right, these are the colonists that you're dealing with. All right. When you're dealing specifically with Queen Anne's War. All right, these raids known collectively as the Appalachian Massacre destroyed missions, killed, enslaved, or forced the majority of the Appalachian to flee and effectively depopulate Spanish Florida, except for fortified towns in St. Augustine and Pensacola. But we're not talking about depopulated completely. All right, because what happened was you still have Maroons in Florida. You still have smaller indigenous groups in Florida. And what's going to happen is you're going to have indigenous people coming out of what would later be called Alabama and in the Carolinas. We're going to have all of these groups come together and later form what would be called the Seminole. All right, let's work. All right, here's your Appalachian Indians. All right, if you notice the instrument, All right, when you're talking about the South, when you're dealing with Southern culture, you're talking about where America's music comes from. All right, and I was just down in Mississippi recently, and in Mississippi on the state sign, it says the home of American music. All right, Yamasee War. All right, the Yamasee were Muskogee speaking people living in what would become southern Georgia and northern Florida when first encountered by the Spanish in the 16th century. All right, 1687, the Yamasee, unhappy with Spanish occupation and rule of their territories, moved north to South Carolina when it was still under British rule. In South Carolina, the Yamasee became allies and trading partners with the British colonists. So like it. They developed the Indian slave trade based on predatory raids. This practice became a lucrative business for Charleston merchants. Now, we just talked about the Queen Anne War. We just talked about how Queen Anne was the niece of Charles II. That's who Charleston is named after. And of course, Charles II is one of the grandsons of King James, the very same King James we are talking about, the 1611 Bible. All right, Indian slaves were then sold in the West Indies, or they were taken to New York and the New England colonies. All right, I know when you think about slavery, when you think about the slave trade, we automatically assume the southern states. All right, but slavery existed in the 13 colonies, in these northern colonies, before the southern states were even thought of. All right, by 1708, the English colonists in the Carolinas owned 1,400 Indian slaves, and by 1715, this had increased to 1,850. Since 1680, British slavers had taken between 24 and 51,000 war captives, most of whom had been shipped as slaves to New England or the Caribbean. So we have indigenous slaves, all right, being sold in the northern colonies or being sold in the Caribbean. All right, the Yamasee were allies with the British slave trade and carried out slave raids against Indian nations in the Spanish territories in Florida. 1708, the Spanish governor in St. Augustine reported that there were only 300 Indians left in the area. He estimated that 10,000 to 12,000 Florida Indians had been enslaved by the Carolinians and their Indian allies. So, like I said, what's going to happen in Florida? What's going to happen in Florida is that the British is going to flip on the Yamasee. All right, the British is going to flip on the Yamasee, and they're going to seek to make peace with the Spanish government. And what's going to happen is the few indigenous people left in Florida, along with some Maroons, they're going to hook up with Indians that are coming out of Alabama. They're going to hook up with Indians that are coming out of Georgia and the Carolinas. And all of these people are going to form what's called the Seminole. All right, by 1710, it was estimated that 20,000 Indian slaves had been shipped from the Southeast to New England, which would be your northern colonies, and the Caribbean. The Carolinians were aware that the Yamasee had some complaints about the way they were being treated. This is what's going to happen when the British is going to flip on them. All right, April 14, 1715, South Carolina's Indian agent, Thomas Name, along with former Indian agent John Wright and others, met with Yamasee chiefs at the village of Pocatello. They spent the evening drinking rum, feasting, and discussing their trade issues. The following morning, which happened to be Good Friday, the Yamasee bound Name to a post at the center of the village square. They pierced his body with lighted splinters and slowly burnt him to death. All right, the Yamasee was thugged out. This was the start of the Yamasee War. It was not just the Yamasee who went to war against the British. In a coordinated action, the Creeks and the Choctaw killed some of the traders in their towns and attacked several plantations. Like I said, the British is going to flip on the Yamasee. The Yamasee is going to seek to make peace with the Spanish. And when that doesn't pan out, all right, they're going to hook up with the Creeks that are coming out of Alabama, Choctaw that are coming out of Mississippi. All right, the Yamasee. All right, they're also going to hook up with the Uchi and the Stono that are coming out the Carolinas. And like I said, they're going to form what's called the Seminole, and they're going to fight. They're going to fight against U.S. expansion. All right, 400 English colonists were killed in the war, which was about 7% of the colonial population. In response, Governor Charles Craven quickly put together an army from South Carolina, an army from the South Carolina militia. A force of 70 Tuscarora aided South Carolina in their war against the Yamasee. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Tuscarora were part of the Iroquois Confederation, and the Iroquois Confederation were a part of aiding the colonists in putting the 13 colonies together in the first place. All right, so it would make sense why the Tuscarora would be at war with the Yamasee once the British flipped on the Yamasee. All right, over the next 2 years, the British and their allies continued to attack the Yamasee, driving them out the region. Many of the survivors fled south to Florida and north into the Catawba Confederacy. Those who fled to Florida once again became allied with the Spanish. The Yamasee War officially ended in 1718 with the peace between the British colonists and the Indian nations. As a result of this war, many colonists began to question the wisdom of capturing and using Indians as slaves. The last distinctively Yamasee village located near St. Augustine was destroyed by the British in 1827. The Yamasee who settled with other nations, the Appalachian Creek Seminole, lost their tribal identity. Like I said, a lot of these people, especially after the Red Stick War between the Creeks, the Stono Revolt, you're going to see all of these groups form what's called the Seminole, and the Seminole is going to go to war with the U.S. in 3 Seminole Wars. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, here's your Yamasee. All right, source, the Florida Anthropologist, by the Florida Anthropological Society, Volume 23. Whenever a Seminole appeared darker than his fellows, it was said that his Yamasee ancestry was shown. And it says the Yamasee Indians were Negroes, what were known afterwards as the fiercest of the Indian tribes in the South. Again, the Yamasee were one of the groups that would later become the Seminole. All right, the Stono. This is another group that would be a part of the Seminole, referred to an American Indian tribe that historically inhabited the area around the Stono River in South Carolina. And they led a rebellion. All right, the battle they strategized to lead is called the Stono Rebellion, which launched what was called the Gullah Wars. And the Gullah Wars is a term sometimes used to refer to the Seminole Wars, specifically highlighting the significant role of escaped slaves from the South Carolina Low Country that spoke Gullah, that fought against the U.S. military during these conflicts. Now, a portion of these people are going to travel with Juan Cavallo out of Oklahoma into Mexico after 1850. All right. And that's why you're still gonna see Seminole in Mexico today, and you're still gonna hear the Gullah language being spoken in certain parts of Mexico today. All right, let's work. All right, Andrew Jackson's invasions during the First Seminole War resulted in the Uchi moving into eastern Florida. The Uchi is another group of Indians that would become Seminole. They fought alongside during the Second Seminole War under their chief Uchi Billy. Third Seminole War, 1855, by the cessation of active fighting in 1858, the few remaining bands of Seminole in Florida had fled deep into the Everglades, land unwanted by American settlers. Taken together, the Seminole Wars were the longest, most expensive, and most deadly of all the American Indian Wars. All right, Uchi Billy was said to be the son of John Hicks, a Miccosukee chief. That's another group that would become the Seminole. 1818, it was identified as the chief of a Uchi town of about 75 people associated with the Miccosukee village east of Tallahassee. And these people are still here today. All right, the Uchi Indians are still here today. All right, the Natchez Revolt. Again, tonight we're talking about enslavement. We're talking about Indian wars, enslavement, and reclassification. All right, one of the earliest recorded incidents of an uprising was the Natchez Indian Revolt, 1729, against the French, with pro-British leanings of some tribal leaders and the recent land grab by the French commander moved the proud Natchez nobles to act. The protests of cruelty by the French, Natchez Indians staged a revolt against the French in 1729, where 230 people were killed. The French retaliated, using their allies from other tribes to punish the Natchez. All right, they ultimately lost, and many were sold into slavery, while others joined other tribes like the Chickasaw. All right, violence. The Flames of Violence, 1731. A number of enslaved who had participated in the Natchez Indian Revolt were involved in the conspiracy to kill all the French and take over the colony. And the French ruled Natchez until 1763, when the area was surrendered to the British and became part of British West Florida. Like I said, we showed the map earlier where Florida existed all the way into East Texas. All right, the Choctaw and Chickasaw were once part of one tribe before their migration from some distant country to the west, and the ancient domain east of the Mississippi River claims from the Mexican origin, meaning all of these indigenous people in the South all originally came from Mexico, according to James Adair. All right, it says the Choctaw and Chickasaw descend from a people called the Chickamauga, who were among the first inhabitants of the Mexican Empire. All right, so according to James Adair, you're indigenous people in the South, in the American South, in this area that was all called Florida at one time, all originally come out of Mexico. All right, the Natchez and the domestic slave trade. In the decades prior to the American Civil War, marketplaces where enslaved people were bought and sold could be found in every town and any size in Mississippi. Natchez was the state's most active trading city. With the invention of the cotton gin, 1793, and the steamboat, 1811, and the introduction of the Mexican variety of cotton into the United States in the 1820s, all helped expand the plantation society in Mississippi after statehood in 1817. All right, it says the plantation system expanded into Mississippi after statehood in 1817. Now, that date is important because the transatlantic slave trade was abolished by 1809. By the time the plantation system makes it to Mississippi after statehood in 1817, the transatlantic slave trade had been abolished by this time. All right. That's why you have something called the Indian slave trade. All right. That's why you have something called the domestic slave trade, where people were being brought out of the former colonies. All right. Places like Maryland. All right. Places like Delaware. And enslaved people were being brought from places in the former 13 colonies down into places like Mississippi and Alabama after these places get statehood. All right, the Natchez played a significant role in the southward movement of the existing enslaved population to the Waiting cotton plantation of the Deep South. Slave sales at Natchez were held in a number of locations, but one marketplace soon eclipsed others in sales. It was known as the Fork in the Road at the intersection of Liberty and Washington, 1 mile east of downtown Natchez. And again, we're talking about the domestic slave trade. When you're talking about the domestic slave trade, you're talking about enslaved people that were being brought out of the former 13 colonies. And you're talking about the indigenous slave trade. You're talking about the Indian slave trade we've been talking about with the Natchez, the Yamasee, and other indigenous people in the South. All right, the French, the Natchez, and free people of color. All right, we're going to get into one way indigenous people were being reclassified. All right. Because like I said, not all reclassification was done in the same way. All right. What happened to indigenous people in Virginia, as far as reclassification goes, is not the same process that indigenous people in Mississippi it's not the same way indigenous people in Mississippi were reclassified. All right. So now we're going to get into a woman whose family was reclassified. All right. Her name was Marguerite Scipion. All right. Was a Natchez woman born into slavery in St. Louis, then located in French Upper Louisiana. 1805, 2 years after St. Louis became under U.S. rule, Marguerite filed the first freedom suit in the city circuit court 41 years before Dred Scott filed his more well-known case. All right, so we have a Natchez woman, an Indian woman, indigenous woman, enslaved, and she's filing a freedom suit. And again, this is 41 years before Dred Scott. All right, 1836, Marguerite, her children, her sister, and other descendants of Marie Scipion, her mother, finally won their case as free people of color. All right, a different way that indigenous people were being reclassified. All right, like I said, what happened in Virginia isn't necessarily what happened in other places like Mississippi. All right, the unanimous jury decision in their favor was based on their descent from a Natchez woman, as Indian slavery had been ended by the Spanish in 1769. The decision withstood appeals to the state and the United States Supreme Court 1838, and the case was considered to end Indian slavery in Missouri. Although in 1806, Louisiana Territorial Supreme Court ruled and decided against the Scipion descendants, they did not give up their desire for freedom. Following the passage of a new law, 1824, protecting enslaved people's rights to sue against illegal enslavement, the women and their children renewed their petitions. 1826, Marguerite Scipion, her children, and her two sisters filed separate suits against their masters. One of the Scipion sisters and some of their descendants died before the cases were decided. The court combined the suits under the name Marguerite, free woman of color, for the final trial. She and other descendants of Marie Scipion finally achieved freedom in 1836. Here's your source. We're talking about an Indian family who filed a freedom suit against their enslaver and were reclassified as free people of color. And here's the image of their family. All right, so now when we're talking about Natchez, we're also talking about another family that's going to come out of this same area. All right, Verena Howell Davis. All right, she was the first lady of the Confederacy, longtime wife of President Jefferson Davis. All right, she's also going to come out of Natchez. All right, Verena Davis, also coming out of Natchez, Mississippi. And she was the first wife of Slocky. She was the first lady of the Confederacy and longtime wife of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. All right, here's an image of Natchez sometime in the 1800s. Now, this is going to take us to what's known as contraband camps. All right, self-emancipated freedmen set up camps near Union forces, often with Army assistance, and thousands of men from these camps enlisted in the United States Colored Troops in 1863. And what happened at this time is that when you're dealing with Civil War history, all right, a lot of this history isn't going to be known because the majority of Civil War history that we get comes after 1920. All right, the majority of Civil War history that we get comes after 1920 and is given to us by people that weren't even in the country yet. I'll get to that in a minute. All right, but what happened is that Lincoln originally didn't want Black and indigenous people to fight on the side of the Union. All right. But the Confederacy had Black and indigenous soldiers. All right. The last Confederate to surrender was an Indian. We'll get to him in a minute. So what happened is that some Confederates flipped on their own soldiers in Kansas. All right. And that caused a lot of Black and indigenous people in these Confederate areas to want to flip and join the Union. All right. So thousands of men from these camps enlisted in the United States Colored Troops, 1863, and contraband camps. This was the legal name for people that were still legally belonged to the Confederacy. All right. Self-emancipated people, self-emancipated freedmen were known as contraband by the Union forces. All right. One particular contraband camp, which is 6,000 runaways at Natchez, Mississippi, was visited by Ulysses S. Grant with some of his family in 1863. And when you're talking about freedmen, all right, here's your source, International Indigenous Society. It says the aim of this pictorial is to demonstrate that the domestic slave trade had reduced ethnic Native Americans to African slaves for sale, and that they too had been freed or received the benefit from emancipation by its effect upon the Indian nations to abolish slavery by the subsequent 1866 treaties and allowed tribal people from Texas and Oklahoma to rejoin family groups. All right. When you're dealing with freedmen, we're only given, in our American history classes, we're only given one aspect of what a freedman is. All right. But we're never told that indigenous people are also known as freedmen. All right. And this is what we're talking about in this particular class tonight. We're talking about the Indian Wars, enslavement, and reclassification. All right. Now, like I said, you had Black and indigenous people that were part of the Confederate Army. All right. First Louisiana Native Guard was a Confederate Louisiana militia that consisted of free Creoles of color, formed in 1861 in Louisiana. Some of the units membered later became 73rd Regiment Infantry for the United States Colored Troops. What happened is the Confederacy flipped on some of their soldiers in Kansas, and that got a lot of Black and indigenous people to flip sides to want to join the Union. All right, Creoles of color were freeborn and enjoyed many of the same privileges, freeborn, and had many of the same privileges that whites did, including property ownership, formal education, service in the militia. And during the antebellum period, the wealthier and prosperous Creoles of color owned slaves. We'll get to that in a minute. We're talking about people that were a part of the Confederacy. All right, free Blacks, free indigenous, free people of color, free Creoles of color. All right, were a part of the Confederate Army. But like I said, the Confederates flipped on some of their soldiers in Kansas, and some of these same people flipped and joined the Union Army. All right, the U.S. colored troops primarily consisted of Black soldiers during the Civil War, also included American Indians who were all considered colored at this time. All right, topic of tonight's class is the Indian Wars, enslavement, and reclassification. All right, here's your U.S. colored troops. All right, the U.S. colored troops played a crucial role in battles against Native American Confederates and often distinguished themselves with bravery and valor. The last Confederate general to surrender during the Civil War was General Stan Wadey, who surrendered his command of Cherokee and Osage troops at Dotesville in Indian Territory, June 23rd, 1865. The last Confederate to surrender was an Indian. The last Confederate general to surrender was an Indian. All right. The U.S. colored troops won the Civil War. All right, black and indigenous troops. All right, the U.S. colored troops won the Civil War. The last Confederate general to surrender was an Indian named Stanway. All right, the 40th U.S. Colored Regiment went to Texas, 1865. This regiment pulled duty at Clarksville and Brownsville on the Rio Grande, 1866. The regiment prevented Confederate forces from avoiding surrender by entering into Mexico. All right, this is one of the comparisons between and one of the relationships between Juneteenth and Cinco de Mayo. All right, the Seminole Scouts or Indian Scouts were hardly distinguishable racially from the U.S. colored troops and cavalry regiments with whom they frequently served and with whom they shared the distinctive cultural traits of the Southern Negro. All right, what is it saying? It's saying that Seminole Indians and black folks in the South share the same culture. All right. And it says hardly distinguishable racially from the U.S. colored troops. Here's your Indian Scouts. Here's your U.S. colored troops. All right. Source, Bureau of American Ethnology. A considerable portion of the blood of the Southern Negro is unquestionably Indian. And again, the reason why we don't get this history is because the history that we're given, especially dealing with the Civil War, all right, is coming to us after 1920. All right, it's coming to us from people that weren't even here at the time. And we're going to break that down in a minute. All right, we just read about black plantation owners. Here's one in particular, all right, dealing with the Randolph family. Again, in Natchez, Mississippi. All right, here's your Peter Randolph, U.S. Freedmen Bank Records, 1865 to 1874. And it describes him with a dark complexion. Do with that what you will. All right, plantation owners benefited from the Freedmen Bureau labor contracts, which were often used to ensure continued work on plantations. Some freedmen, we just talked about the freedmen, continued to work for their former masters as sharecroppers and tenant farmers, often falling into a cycle of debt peonage. All right, Morris Shepherd, freedmen, we just talked about who the freedmen were. That's going to take us into what's called the Freedmen's Bank. All right, Civil War and Emancipation. After the Civil War, millions of formerly enslaved people, many who had deep ancestral ties to the land as indigenous descended people, were in a vulnerable position economically and politically. These communities were not simply passive victims. They had accumulated wealth, skills, land, particularly in the South and some urban areas. All right, how were freed people, including indigenous people, drawn into it? We just read earlier that there's an aspect of people known as freedmen, all right, but we're only taught about one aspect of slavery. We're only talked about one aspect of what a freedman is, and we're never taught that freedmen were also indigenous people too. All right, U.S. Army and Freedmen Bureau officials created the Freedmen's Bureau, 1865, controlled access to food, jobs, education, and aid, promoted the Freedmen's Bank directly to former slaves, indigenous freedmen, and mixed-race landholders as the only safe and legal place to deposit assets and money. After the bank failed in 1874, the main office mysteriously caught fire. The fire destroyed bank books, ledger records, personal deposit slips, documentation of pensions and wages, and property associated with deposits. No investigation was ever conducted. 1870, the trustees altered the charter so that the bank no longer needed to hold original deposit certificates or land title receipts. This meant if depositors couldn't present their own original paperwork, they had no claim. When branch office closed or burned, people lost everything and had no copy remain. The U.S. Treasury took over the files and held them in storage, but many were never cataloged, and some were deliberately excluded from federal archiving. So what's going to happen to all of the money and the land deeds that were held in the Freedmen's Bank. All right, courthouse fires in Seminole and Orange County destroyed land deeds and paperwork. Many property sales to immigrants were conducted after such fires without full documentation. In cases where freedmen sued banks for deposit losses, the judges often declared the records had perished or were inconclusive. All right. So now we have the money and we have the property that was supposedly lost in the theft of the Freedmen's Bank going to immigrants. Now, who are these immigrants? All right. It says Black Americans contributed $57 billion to the Freedmen's Bank, which was corrupted by northern white capitalists and their business partners, and 61,000 Black families were robbed of their life savings and generational wealth. Now, where did the money go? And who acquired the land that was lost? All right. Now, 2020, the white population of America currently, all right, white Americans make up 57.8% of the United States, 191 million. All right, 43% of white Americans have roots tracing back to the colonial period, but 93 million Americans are descendants of homesteaders. All right, what does that mean? That means that the majority of white Americans are descended from people that immigrated to the United States after the Civil War. All right. The majority of white Americans today are descended from immigrants that came to the United States after the Civil War. All right. And they came up on the theft of the Freedmen's Bank. And these are the very same people that are teaching us our history. All right. We're letting people that came up off of the theft of the Freedmen's Bank, and we're letting people that came here after the Civil War teach us about our own history. All right. This is the problem. All right, 1862 to 1934, the federal government granted over 1.5 million homesteads to private citizens. This represented approximately 10% of the entire land mass of the United States. It was a massive transfer of land ownership from the federal government to individual citizens and inaugurated a series of land rushes during which homesteaders rushed in to settle land on a first-come, first-served basis. All right, what happened is that during the theft of the Freedmen's Bank, when Black and indigenous people lost generational wealth, lost life savings, all right, lost land deeds, all right, all of this was given to immigrants that were coming here after the Civil War. All right, from the 1860s to the 1930s, all right. And again, this is where the majority of white Americans today descend from. The majority of white Americans today are descended from immigrants that came to the United States after the Civil War. They came up off of the theft of the Freedmen's Bank. And these are the people that are teaching us our history, and they weren't even here in the first place. All right, after the Compromise of 1877 removed federal protection for Black Americans in the South, it became clear that anyone who attempted to resist racial oppression would be subjected to vigilante justice at the hands of the KKK or other white supremacist organizations. All right, so let's drop that. Let's get into the Bible. Before we go ahead and end it, let's go to Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? All right. if these people that came up off the theft of the Freedmen's Bank, these are the same people that are teaching us our history today. These are the same people that are telling us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. All right. These are the wicked. These are the wicked. All right. These people came here between 1860 and 1930. Again, came up off the theft of the Freedmen's Bank. Came up off wealth and land that was stolen from Black and indigenous people. All right. In the fraud that was the Freedmen's Bank. And again, these are the people that teach our children our history today. People that weren't even here in the first place. All right. These are the very same people that tell us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And again, the majority of white Americans today descend from people that came to the United States after the Civil War. All right. The Bible says the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. All right. Covering the faces of the judges, meaning we had a whole class on reclassification. We had a whole class on reclassification of indigenous people. We read where the Yamasee had lost their identity. We read where Natchez Indians were reclassified as free people of color. All right, this is covering the faces of the judges. All right, and if not, where and who is he? All right, if our oppressor today isn't the wicked, then who is he? And where is he? All right, so let's go ahead and drop that. All right, let's drop that. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me, man. Soaking up some of this game. Again, Monday night, 9 p.m. Lord willing, history class. Tuesday night, brotherhood class. Wednesday night, the podcast, Cry Out, Spare Not podcast. And Saturday morning, we got the Sabbath service. All right, so with that, we'll do one courtesy salute. All right, shalom. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shabarakat Yahweh Shemala Thumb Bashem Yahweh Shah. Class dismissed.
They killed, give me Isaiah 14 and 21. They did the same thing to my people. So that you said that they put millions of my actions. Should a murderer jail for murdering? Absolutely. Should a thief go to jail when he steals? Absolutely. Should a robber pay back the money he robbed? Absolutely. So why shouldn't the white man pay for what he did? That's right. That's right.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a
I'm in a hell of a hole, was never expected to grow. Just obstacles set in the road, that a result of me selling my soul. The story I'm telling is cold, but yet it's what everyone knows. The white man's the devil is known. America was never a home. Only a place of captivity, save facility, hating, disfigure me. They claim that I'm lazy, be killing me. Maybe this slavery draining my energy. 400 years and counting. The trail of my tears is countless. Main fact that I'm here is astounding, but I can't wait till this shit is surrounded. Ready to tangle my king and the angels, be ready to rap. Crack in the sky, nuclear missiles will make it official. I'm capturing every cracker surviving. Put them all in chains where they need to be. Slavery for me. And let the whole world see that with them in the cage and safer in the streets. Put the dog on a leash. Get resolved for the beast. 144, get the ruler show, we could all be at peace. As soon as the trumpets are sound, your kingdom, we busting it down. The only way justice is found, the time for your judgment is now.
You see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a
Look, ain't no remorse in my blood slim. It won't be no compromise. Now it's time to feed the worms. Watch his body turn to flies. I clutch iron while you trust the lies. The next Glock I buy gon' be Gen 5. I get it customized. And sending shots off like farewell. Praying payback come back around like a carousel. Still remember your Honda's words ringing in my head like bells. Said you in this body, you fit a Lord, fuck the cartel. Triangle choke, apply pressure to the game like I did Von Dale. Payback's a bitch in a dress. Revenge is served cold. I just hope they make an oxtail. Glock fresh out the box, I swear it got that new car smell. Made myself a target in the world of mass shooters. That was designed fire for our babies to pass through. In the day of our king's reign, I'll be overzealous. They bought my jealous up for a brand new parabellum.
You see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a dog. It's a dog. Payback is a
Send my bro a kite quick. Times of war, we ain't forget about you. Keep your light lit. Rappers can't see. Most of them scared to witness. Go and close your eyes. Cause one right here for the trenches. Bad bitches, natural hair or extensions. Hood niggas that'll probably grip like some dentures. Brothers on them fences. 23 and 1 out. Praying that that commissary hit before it run out. Bitches on the gram, dog filter with their tongue out. Couldn't stay home because they found the dugout. Closed casket, burner in the low jacket. My co-captain, riding on these whole rappers. My hoes fabulous. Now I don't mean that derogatory, but I'm a player and there's no my women riding for me. I avoided Maury, I got 2 jets. If I can't make it through for them, then I'm useless. Sit down that roof, Chris, with a couple bosses. After the war, just to count our losses. It's not many. You see a smile on my face, but I'm not friendly. Going on my waist, sipping white Henny. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know light. Gotta got my heart grip, my bow tie. Waiting on this war in my whole life. I just hope this shit go right. Living in but you can't walk a mile in my sneakers. Bitches go to Miami, come home with change features. Now she got a BBL, her ass fatter. Trying to show up all them niggas that laughed at her. Now when they see her, they only wanna fuck her. They just wanna touch her, they don't wanna cuff her. They just wanna come and kick it with her like a punter. Turned her to a runner, now it's all aboard the train. Fenty on her face, but it's not concealing the pain, it's a shame. That's why I'm in the hood like some rap snacks. I know niggas kill you and your mama for a scat pack. Dark tint, matte black, they do it for half that. Had you like 90s Missy in a fucking trash bag. I'm from Philly, we don't do bank accounts, just cash app. I spit a verse and I just watch the time slow. This that guy flow, this that shit that rappers die for. This that uncut Taha Wall straight from Pablo Escobar. I be at the bar like Moscato. They think it's effort, but no, this that block work. Make the countermeasures, take pleasures, making an op hurt. Light is in the sky, cause every verse is a concert. My mind work at speed, y'all can't fathom. Listen to the words of a champion. You can't, the streets need another anthem. I just hope this shit go right. Living in the dark, you don't know lie. Gotta got my heart, grip my pull time. Waiting on the score in my whole life.